The engagement ring slid off my finger twice that week, once while washing dishes, once when I reached into my purse at the pharmacy. He noticed the second time. "Maybe we should get it resized," he said, leaning over the counter with that easy, practiced smile. I nodded. I didn't tell him I'd measured the band myself 3 days earlier. Size 6.25, same as my sister's. He'd proposed on a Tuesday, not a holiday, not a birthday, just a random Tuesday after dinner. No build-up, no photographer, no close friends or family involved. I was still chewing when he pulled the box from his coat pocket. I thought it was spontaneous, romantic, a man who couldn't wait another second. Now I see it for what it was, convenient. "My name is Claire Moreno. I'm 31. I manage logistics for a national catering firm out of Sacramento. I organize chaos for a living, and I recognized the signs the moment I stopped pretending I couldn't." That day in the pharmacy, he handed the ring back to me gently. "Don't want you losing it," he said. "That'd be a hell of a bill to replace." I laughed. I always laughed at his jokes. That was my role. Agreeable, easygoing, lucky to be chosen. I slid the ring back on, tighter this time, twisting it behind the knuckle. Then I smiled, asked if he wanted sushi for dinner, and made a mental note to check the timestamp on the purchase receipt. He'd said he bought it a few days ago. I already knew that was a lie. The fallout didn't start with a scream. It started with a receipt. Emailed confirmation from St. Clair Jewelers, dated 4 months prior. The same week my sister Alyssa broke off her engagement. It wasn't just the timing that unsettled me, it was the fact that the ring he gave me was the exact style Alyssa had pinned to her wedding board 2 years ago. She hadn't deleted the board. Pinterest isn't good at hiding old dreams. Neither was my fiancé. I didn't confront him that night. Instead, I texted Alyssa a photo of the ring. She replied with a heart emoji. Then a second message, 1 minute later. "Wait, is that my ring?" That's when I knew. My sister had turned him down, and he'd kept the ring, not returned it, not sold it, not even tucked it away out of shame, just saved it for the next yes. For me, the silence that followed wasn't emotional, it was surgical. I began cataloging inconsistencies. How he'd fumbled when I asked when he decided to propose, how he avoided eye contact whenever we ran into Alyssa, how she always looked like she'd swallowed a secret. It wasn't hatred I felt, it was clarity. People think betrayal comes with heat, but this was cold, so I started planning. There would be no fight, no warning, only the moment. The moment I would let him walk into a ceremony built on borrowed lies and leave it in handcuffs or humiliation, whichever came first. I made the vow that night as I stared at the ring box he'd left on my nightstand. Not to destroy him, not to embarrass him, but to correct the record. Because I wasn't the backup bride, I was the ending. The first time she laughed, I let it slide. It was at the bridal boutique. I was standing on a small platform, hemline grazing the tops of my shoes, staring at myself under harsh, fluorescent light. Emma sat behind me in one of those cushioned chairs they offer to VIP guests, though nothing about her posture said guest. She sat like someone watching a rerun, like someone who already knew the ending. She laughed when I lifted my hand to admire the ring. Just a breath of a sound, quick, contained, but I heard it. I turned toward her slowly. "What?" Emma's face didn't change. She waved her hand like it was nothing. "Nothing, just, this dress isn't you." It wasn't the dress she meant, but I played along. We'd always had this quiet rivalry, the kind that grows in well-manicured homes with matching bedrooms and split attention. She was the one with the scholarships, the layered hair, the natural charisma. I was the one who worked quietly, wore flats, and followed rules. She always got to be first. I was the one who waited. I didn't mind. Until now. 2 nights later, I was in our parents' kitchen, bridal shower planning. Emma leaned against the fridge, scrolling through her phone while I reviewed the guest list. "You know Jordan's not really your type," she said. I kept my voice flat. "What does that mean?" She didn't look up. "I just thought you'd end up with someone more interesting." I set the paper down. "You mean someone more like you?" Her smile was thin. I didn't say that. But she didn't deny it either. That night, I stayed up combing through old social media posts. Not mine, hers. There it was. A photo from last summer. Emma and Jordan on a rooftop bar, drinks in hand. Her caption read, "Sometimes the best views are the ones you didn't plan." He hadn't told me they'd hung out. In fact, he'd said they didn't get along. I cross-checked the date. It was 2 weeks before he asked me out. I scrolled further. 3 months before that, another post. No faces, just 2 glasses of whiskey, side by side. Her caption, "Some people say no. Some people wait to be asked again." I stared at that caption for a long time. Then I looked at the ring on my finger. Suddenly, the engagement felt less like a proposal and more like a second draft. The next time I saw Emma, I asked her directly, "Did he ever propose to you?" She blinked. "What?" "Jordan, did he ask you first?" She laughed again, too loud this time. "Oh my God, Claire, are you seriously asking that?" "I am." She paused, then tilted her head like she was deciding whether I deserved the truth. Finally. "It was complicated. He and I had a moment. But I told him we were a bad idea, so he moved on, to you." There it was, said aloud. No denial, no apology, just the cruel efficiency of a woman who'd always been first. I didn't flinch. I didn't argue. I thanked her for her honesty and left, because now I had what I needed. Proof that I wasn't chosen. I was defaulted. And the wedding? It wasn't a celebration. It was a cover-up. It wasn't hard to confirm what Emma said. People think secrets require effort to uncover. They don't. Not when the liar believes you'll never ask the right question. Jordan was sloppy with his digital trail. He reused passwords, didn't archive messages, forgot to unlink an old Google Photos album. One evening, while he was in the shower, I borrowed his tablet under the pretense of checking registry orders. What I actually checked was his cloud. The photos loaded instantly, organized by faces, dates, locations. I didn't go looking for anything. I just typed Emma. 53 results, trips, bars, parks, her birthday dinner, the 4th of July. Some of them were cropped tight. Just drinks, hands, candles. But I recognized the sleeves of her jacket, the curve of his hand, the ring on her middle finger she always wore when she was nervous. There were no selfies, no captions, but there was intimacy in the angles. They didn't look like friends. They looked like the beginning of a yes that never came. I closed the tab, cleared the cache, didn't say a word. That weekend he took me to wine country. "A surprise weekend getaway," he said. He booked the same cabin Emma had tagged a year ago. He toasted to new beginnings. I smiled and clinked my glass, even as I realized I was living in the shadow of her rejection. Jordan wasn't marrying me. He was completing something. Marrying the sister was his way of staying close to the first choice, without facing the shame of being denied. To him, proximity was a win. Publicly, we were a power couple. Privately, I was an emotional knockoff. He used to say he loved my stability, that I made things easy, predictable. Now I know that's code for you won't ask questions I can't answer. When I did, subtly, carefully, he'd wrap himself in faux tenderness. He'd say, "You're just overthinking again, babe," with his hand on my knee. He'd kiss the top of my head and change the subject. It worked. For a while. But when a man chooses you out of convenience, even his affection feels like outsourcing. There was no passion, just rituals. He knew when to say, "I love you," but not how to mean it. I ran my own silent audit of our relationship. The first time he told me I was safe. The first time he mentioned how chaotic Emma was. The night he complimented me, then asked me to dye my hair darker. Every sentence that once felt flattering now felt like sandpaper. I wasn't his partner. I was the backup plan with benefits. I didn't cry. I got organized. I printed every photo I needed. I cross-checked message logs. I even asked an old friend of Emma's to confirm what I already suspected. She did. Emma and Jordan were engaged in secret. Briefly, he proposed. She said no. I was the sister who wouldn't make it messy. I remember standing in front of the mirror that night, staring at myself in the dress, noticing how perfectly it fit, how symmetrical everything looked, and how completely false it all was. People think revenge is driven by emotion, but this wasn't rage, this was restoration. He took something from me, my sense of place, my certainty, my worth. So I was going to take something back. Not by fighting, by finishing the performance, with the truth stitched into the lining. The first version of the guest list had 94 names. Jordan insisted on trimming it down, said it felt performative to have people there who didn't matter. I agreed. Why invite extra witnesses to something that was already staged? We cut coworkers, distant cousins, former classmates, but one name wasn't on any list. Emma. Not in the wedding party, not on the guest spreadsheet, not even penciled into the reception diagram. When I brought it up, Jordan didn't flinch. "She said she couldn't come," he said casually. "Work trip, overseas, non-refundable." I nodded slowly. "She didn't mention it to me." He shrugged. "Maybe it's last minute." I didn't respond. I'd already checked her Instagram. She hadn't posted in over a week. No mentions of travel, no goodbye dinner, no suitcase, no airport check-in, no countdown stories. Emma didn't post because Emma wasn't supposed to attend, because she couldn't sit there and watch him marry someone who used to call her sis, because Jordan didn't want her there, not because she was irrelevant, but because she was central. Too central. It's funny. People think cheating is physical, that the betrayal is in the touch, the secrecy, the intimacy. But it's often found in the logistics, in the redacted names, in the deleted messages, in the sudden interest in minimalism, like cutting your sister from the guest list without blinking. I called Emma from my car. She picked up on the second ring. "Hey, I just wanted to say I hope your trip goes well," I said. There was a pause. "What trip?" "To Europe. The work trip Jordan said you had during the wedding." Another pause. Longer this time. Then, "Claire, I'm not going to Europe." I didn't speak. I told him I wasn't coming. I didn't want to be a problem. You wouldn't have been. I didn't want to make things worse. "They're already worse," I said. I just didn't know how much. Emma exhaled. "You always deserved better than a hand-me-down proposal." "I know." That night I opened the wedding slideshow folder. Jordan had titled it Forever. There were photos of us hiking, cooking, holding hands on park benches. I added 3 new slides at the end. Photos of him and Emma. The engagement ring he'd given her. Same design. A final shot of my dress hanging alone in the boutique, captioned, "Sometimes the last choice is the one who gets to speak last." Then I synced the file to the wedding venue's AV system. No password required. Just timing. We were 4 days out. Jordan was busy with seating charts. I was making sure the speakers worked, no backup, no warning, no one to stop it, because no one knew what was coming, especially him. He thought this would end with a kiss, with applause, with closure. He didn't understand. I wasn't there to get married. I was there to make sure no one else ever said yes to him again. The morning of the wedding, I didn't cry. I didn't panic. I didn't even check my phone. Instead, I folded the letter I'd written 3 times, slid it into the inner lining of my bouquet, taped a USB to the underside of the AV console, adjusted the volume just low enough that the first 2 slides would feel like a technical glitch, just long enough to make people listen. Jordan had left early that morning, said he needed to meet the officiant, double-check the seating plan. He kissed my forehead before he left. "You okay?" he asked. I nodded. "Calm." He smiled. "I like that about you." I closed the door behind him and deadbolted it. The venue was all white stone and glass, rustic enough for Instagram, expensive enough to impress. My makeup artist complimented my skin. The photographer complimented my pose. My aunt said, "You were always the quiet one. I'm glad it's finally your turn." Everyone smiled. Everyone waited. No one noticed the weight in my hands wasn't nerves. It was clarity. When it was time, I didn't hesitate. I walked the full length of the aisle, each step precise, controlled. Jordan stood under a floral arch that cost more than my monthly salary. He looked confident. I matched his smile, took his hand, turned toward the officiant, and waited, because I knew what was coming. I'd timed the AV slideshow to begin exactly 3 minutes into the ceremony, just as the officiant would say, "Before we begin, a few words from the couple." Jordan had submitted a pre-recorded message. He wanted it to feel modern, polished. But what played instead was mine. It started with our engagement photo, then a hard cut, to Emma, to the rooftop, to the ring. Gasps rippled through the crowd. I turned to face them. "Sometimes," I said, "the truth doesn't wait for the vows." Jordan grabbed the remote from the AV tech. Too late. The final slide froze on screen. I was never his first choice, just the one who didn't say no. Silence, then whispers, chairs moving, one of the bridesmaids walking out. Jordan reached for me. "Claire, what the hell is this?" I stepped back, unclipped the bouquet, handed him the folded letter. "No need to finish the ceremony, it's already done." I didn't run. I didn't cry. I walked out the front entrance while guests spilled outside, murmuring, filming, some apologizing, some just staring. No one followed me, except Emma. She stood by my car, arms crossed, unreadable. "You really did it," she said. I unlocked the door. "He was going to marry me just to get close to you." She nodded. "I know. He lied. To both of us. Not anymore." We didn't hug. We didn't say sorry. We just stood there. 2 women finally outside the story he tried to write. And for the first time in months, I wasn't wearing the ring. He tried to take the mic. That was the first mistake. I had told the AV team there might be a timing cue issue and to only listen to my signal. I made a small gesture, index and middle finger pressed together, and the tech nodded. His loyalty, like most people's, had been quietly bought with clarity and advance instructions. Jordan's hand twitched toward the mic as the officiant stammered, but the mic didn't work. Not for him. I stepped forward. "May I?" I asked the officiant. He was too stunned to respond, so I took the silence as permission. I turned to the crowd. People often say weddings are about love, that they're sacred, symbolic, pure. They're not. They're statements, declarations of hierarchy, approval, narrative, and Jordan had crafted his with precision. A narrative where I was the chosen one, where Emma was a chapter he'd turned, where his calculated affection could pass as romantic devotion. But he forgot one thing. I knew how to build a narrative too, and I wasn't afraid to end his. "My name is Claire," I said, steady, eyes forward. "And I was supposed to read vows today, vows written under the assumption that this was a shared dream, that we were building something real together." A murmur rolled through the rows. "But last night," I continued, "I realized something important. I don't need a wedding to reclaim my voice. I just need a microphone." Jordan stepped forward again, voice low. "Claire, stop." I ignored him. "I know what it's like to be Plan B, to be chosen not because of who you are, but because someone else said no. I know what it's like to confuse being needed with being loved." I looked at the front row. His mother's mouth was open. Emma had moved back inside. She stood in the shadows, arms crossed. "Jordan proposed to someone else first," I said. "He kept the ring, changed the script, and waited until someone more convenient came along." Silence, then the shuffling of feet, a phone snapping a picture, someone whispering, "Is this real?" I reached into my bouquet and pulled out a small flash drive. "This has the full story," I said, "for anyone who still has doubts." I handed it to the officiant. He didn't take it, so I laid it at his feet. I turned to Jordan. "You didn't just lie. You edited the past. You deleted her and inserted me. You thought I'd never ask, never check, never notice." I paused, but I did. I turned to the audience one last time. "There won't be a first dance. There won't be cake. There won't be a marriage." Then I looked Jordan in the eye. "But there will be consequences, and I hope you're ready to live with every single one of them." As I stepped down from the altar, the clapping started. Not loud, not frenzied, but enough. Emma didn't move to meet me. She didn't need to, because this moment wasn't about us. It was about me, and the silence I refused to maintain any longer. The first video went live before I got home. A shaky clip from someone in the fourth row. My voice on a microphone, the photo slideshow, the flash drive on the carpet. The wide-eyed silence of guests who'd thought they were attending a wedding and ended up watching a controlled demolition. It was posted with the caption, "She exposed the groom mid-vow." This is how you do revenge. Then came the edits, TikToks with dramatic music, reaction videos, duets with commentary like, "She's the blueprint," and "Emma who?" By morning, the clip had 2.4 million views. By the end of the week, it had a name, number Backup Bride Revenge. Jordan tried to control the fallout. He posted a Notes app apology, vague, emotionless, full of words like miscommunication and mutual understanding. It backfired. People found the venue. They found Emma's old posts. They compared ring photos. They built timelines better than any detective. The internet doesn't forgive cowardice, and Jordan was a case study in spinelessness. By week 2, his LinkedIn said, "Open to opportunities." His startup's investor pulled funding. Someone leaked internal Slack messages he thought were deleted, and then came the memes, screenshots of his shocked face under the arch, the frozen PowerPoint slide, just the one who didn't say no. Captioned, "When you try to marry the backup but she brought receipts." I didn't post anything, didn't like or share, didn't give interviews. I didn't need to. My silence was louder than anything he could say. Emma texted once, "You didn't just speak, you finished the story." I didn't reply, not out of malice, but because there was nothing more to say. People asked if I'd ever trust again, if I'd fall in love, if I was still open to marriage. They don't understand. This wasn't about closing the door. This was about proving I knew how to walk out of one, with my name, my dignity, and the truth intact. I kept the dress, not as a symbol of what almost was, but as evidence of what I escaped. I hung it in a garment bag labeled Plan A Myself. And every time someone reposts the video, every time his name trends with a new insult, every time a stranger says, "You saved me from making the same mistake," I know I didn't just crash a wedding, I rewrote the ending.